Alrighty, so welcome back to the next segment of the 50-50 show. We're going to be talking about one last game from last night, the Orlando Magic versus the Toronto Raptors. The Orlando Magic lost in an upset 93 to 109 to the tanking Toronto Raptors. No Emmanuel quickly, led by Scottie Barnes, who almost had a 17-point triple-double. Paolo Banchero had 26 points and 12 rebounds, also had 5 turnovers and 5 fouls. But Omair, what do you make of this upset? Orlando Magic generally considered a contender team, been doing well despite all the injuries. In this game, Cole Anthony ended up not playing, and then Jonathan Isaac played 5 minutes, got injured or something tweaked, and then left the game and never came back. What do you make of this loss?
This Magic team is cursed. It's simple, okay? Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, both separately having breakout seasons, hitting that next level of basketball play. What happened? Both of them get injured at separate times. These two have yet to play together on the court beyond maybe 3 games. Then, Jalen Suggs takes a hard fall, unfortunately, rolled out in a wheelchair. I believe he's still injured. One of the best defensive point guards in the league, not just the East. And that's simply not controversial. It's just true. Cole Anthony, he's solid. Isaac Black not playing. Literally, this team is the definition of unlucky. This guy talking about the Sixers being unlucky, the Magic is what we call unlucky, where they're a good team, but they literally can't get past these injuries. So let's talk about the game. The biggest thing I want to talk about is for Paolo and why they lost is he's my boy. I really love his game. I love his improvement, but he still has glaring weaknesses. I'm going to admit it. So the turnovers, he had 2 assists to 5 turnovers, decimal ratio. It's unacceptable. Decimal Danny's cannot be first option. This is not going to work like that. The thing is, I'm not worried. Want to know why? At the end of the day, he's a power forward. Okay, I don't want him handling the ball that much. When Franz comes back, he's going to take on some of those ball handling duties. He's going to absorb some of that defensive pressure. Those turnovers will come down naturally. So while it was a big contribution to this loss, I'm ultimately not worried. Same thing goes for those free throws. The free throw shooting was not great. I think he was 4 of 7. This is not a good percentage, but once again, power forward. We want to evaluate him like a guard because he moves like one. He can handle like one. But ultimately, the free throw shooting must improve, but he's ultimately a big man. It's just going to come with time. I love the three-point shooting. He wasn't very accurate, but I want to say he was 3 of 7. I love the fact they took 7 attempts. Because as I've talked about before, a big part of Paolo's game is his driving, his midi, superb. But if that three-point shot is falling, if he gets a consistent three-point shot, he hits a whole new level of offensive deadliness. So just keep an eye on that. I really want to look for that three-point shooting to improve. Those were his 2 main issues, but ultimately I think they will improve. And the turnovers thing, I have zero concern about because I know Franz will be back. Now let's talk about the Toronto Raptors. I said this from the start. My co-host disagreed, talking about Emmanuel quickly, telling me to hop off. You need to leave that boy quickly alone. Scottie Barnes, 8 assists, 2 turnovers, amazing playmaking, showing what I was talking about. He can be a real point forward type player. He had 17 points. He was a solid scorer. And then the defense, remember, I'm a big fan. 2-way players. He's a big fan of 2-way players. Barnes, solid defender. 2 steals, 1 block. Okay? This is solid defensive play, which I love to see from my boy Scottie. Also, shout out Kelly Olynyk. He had a solid game. He's a solid role player. I hated on him when he was in Celtics because, I'm a perennial Celtics hater. But now he's on the Raptors. I can give him the proper love he deserves. He's a solid player.
Yeah, interesting that you blame Paolo Banchero because I actually think I'm one of Paolo Banchero's bigger haters. Don't think he's very good. But I think a big reason that he had a decimal assist to turnover ratio is that Orlando shot 25% from the field after the first quarter. Thought his teammates just absolutely choked. People were not hitting the shots, and he was giving them decent passes. I think in any reasonable world, he ends with something like 6 assists. Now, don't get me wrong, 6 assists, 5 turnovers, that's a Cade Cunningham level ratio, but I think it would be a lot more forgivable. In general, I don't think Paolo Banchero was to blame for this game. One thing I do want to mention is KCP had a great game. Shout out to him. Love that. Then Wendell Carter Jr., this was a matchup that he was supposed to absolutely dominate. With Goga Bitadze out, which by the way is really important. Goga Bitadze being out is way more important than like Jalen Suggs being out or when Paolo Banchero was out.
Nah. It's Paolo, Suggs, then him.
Goga Bitadze is the main reason that the Orlando Magic were able to win despite losing Paolo and then Franz.
Okay,
like you have to give the credit to someone, right? A lot of people will give it to Suggs. I fundamentally disagree. I think Suggs is a mediocre point guard. I think
great defensive point guard. Great leader.
I think Goga Bitadze is a really good center. And Wendell Carter Jr. is also a really great center, but Goga's just better, so Wendell ends up being put on the bench. But this game, no Goga, so now Wendell should dominate on the paint, and he just doesn't. He fouls out. He gets into foul trouble before he's really able to take over. And so, of the starters, I think he was the biggest disappointment. He needed to step up. He needed to dominate. Anthony Black didn't do great either. Cole Anthony was surprisingly out for this game. So, Anthony Black was taking a lot more shots. He had terrible efficiency, not great passing. And, his defense was okay, but he was tired from the offense. So, I thought his defense struggled a little bit. So, in general, those are the two starters that I'm disappointed with. But overall, I don't blame the starters a ton for this game. If you look at the plus minuses and just when you watch the game, when it was starters versus starters, it was a pretty close game. Closer than you'd like if you're the Orlando Magic.
The tanking Raptors.
Yeah, but it was fine because a lot of the tanking teams can keep it close. Remember, this Toronto Raptors just beat the Boston Celtics like a week ago, right? So this isn't like a pushover team. But what really won the game for the Toronto Raptors was the bench. Look at the Toronto Raptors. They had 15 guys out there. They threw every single guy out there. And their bench was just able to destroy Orlando's bench. Queen, Houston, Tristan de Silva. These guys off the Orlando Magic bench are, in general, I don't think they're very good. But today or last night, they played extra bad. And then you look at Toronto's bench, Bruce Brown, Chris Boucher, Jamal S-Head or Sheed. I can't believe I said S-Head. Jamal Sheed.
Come on, man.
Who else, man? There were a couple other players. I can't remember all the names off the top of my head, but they went 15 deep, and they had amazing plus minuses. They were really able to build a lead and go on a run while the bench units were out there, and Orlando's bench was just looking really, really bad. So that's most of what I attribute this game to is Orlando Magic bench being terrible today and in general being not very good, and then the Toronto Raptors bench being actually quite good. Because that's a belief I've had for a while. Like last time I talked about the Raptors, I talked about how I think Boucher is good. I think Quickly is good. I think a couple of the bench players are good. I don't think their pivotal star pieces in like Scottie Barnes or RJ Barrett are very good. And then Orlando Magic, I think Franz Wagner is good. I think Goga Bitadze is good. But then their bench starts
Paolo
falling off.
Good. Yep.
I do not think Paolo is good. But I do now. I'm not gonna avoid the elephant in the room. Scottie Barnes, my boy.
Your boy, he's your boy now. He's up. Now he's your boy.
He's my boy because he gives very nice vibes. He's not my boy because I hate on him as a player. So
they didn't clarify that last time. Now you're talking about how much you like him as a player.
No, as a person.
My bad. My fault.
So 17 points. I think 11 rebounds, 8 assists. You can't hold anything against him. Good efficiency from the field, good efficiency from three, good stocks. He was by far the best starter for the Toronto Raptors. And this win, you got to credit. This is what you need to see out of Scottie Barnes if you're a Raptors fan. Like, if he puts up these kind of performances, and it's nice that he did it against a playoff level team. Like the Orlando Magic, even with all their injuries, were still a decent team. They were definitely favored to win. This is what you need to start seeing out of Scottie Barnes. I do think a big part of the win for the Raptors was RJ Barrett only taking 9 shots. Like, he went 6 of 9, which, wow, God was already smiling to even let him hit over 50%. But just having him not put up 20 dumb bricks, that's really big deal. And I think putting the bench unit in for the Toronto Raptors, one of the big benefits of that is you get to take RJ Barrett off the floor and put literally anybody else back on the floor. And I don't think it can be understated. He got like 8 rebounds. He really overperformed in the second half, getting a ton of rebounds. So I thought it was an amazing game from RJ Barrett for his standards. And I think that definitely contributed to the win because he's a typical tank commander where he shoots you out of the games. So I think that's really all I have to say about it. Definitely an upset. But for me, it's because Wendell Carter Jr. fouls out. Jonathan Isaac leaves. So now you're missing rebounding. You're missing defensive ability. Goga Bitadze's out. And I just don't worry too much about this game. Like, this game does not make me worry about the Orlando Magic's future at all. it does show you why I think Paolo Banchero is not as good as people think. But I actually think you're coming in a little too, as too much as a hater on him.
You can't help but disagree, bro.
Well, no, because you're like if you want to talk about his efficiency, you want to talk about his inability to hit all his free throws. That's cool. That stuff I've already talked about. But his passing, I actually think he's a pretty decent passer, and I would say that
usually is, but 5 turnovers is a lot.
Yeah, but the Orlando Magic, if you're gonna shoot 25%, like he's gonna feel desperate, he's gonna feel pressured, and then his assists aren't as high as they should be. So I feel like his assists should be higher, and then I feel like his turnovers would have been a little lower if his team could hit a bucket and he didn't have to come on the floor and be like, dude, we're down 10, we're down 15. Like, what the heck? We gotta get going. That pressure, you can't. I don't blame him for that. So I think you're coming in a little hard on Paolo Banchero.
I think you're coming in a little hard on the Magic bench, especially if we use variance as an argument to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. I will gladly use a variance argument for the Orlando Magic bench. I think their bench is solid. They're a well-constructed team. Last season they were pretty high seed as well. It was all about passing by committee. It was all about winning as a team. So the bench played a huge part in that. So I'll say variance. This team, as a team, they shot 25%. That's not going to happen again. The bench will be playing better. So, I don't understand why Paolo, those turnover critiques, they're, like I said, with Franz back, it's less of a concern. But then the bench, you're being too harsh on them. It simply just is variance. And remember, role players get the variance argument. We talk about it all the time. Oh, the bench had a good game. You won the game. They had a bad game. What can you do? It is what it is. We always talk about the star. We talk about LeBron, right? A big reason people love LeBron is he raises his bench. Even when they're having a bad game, he improves them. So when I look at Paolo, when I see the potential in him to be a really good player, I want to look for things like that. So I don't think I'm being too harsh. I would gladly give the role players the variance. The variance
I'm
pass.
glad you've come in on this. Paolo is not a floor raiser. He's nowhere near LeBron, he's not very
good.
Obviously
nowhere near LeBron.
Just wrap it up.
No.
Wrap it up.
I think he had the potential for that, and on certain games he can be. You need to give him time to develop.
Nah, I mean he's just not that good.
He is.
Nah, he's not.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I agree with you on this. Franz Wagner, that's who we're waiting for, the best player on the Orlando Magic.
No, he is the second best player.
You think Franz Wagner is the second best player?
Yes.
Bro, he was shooting 28 points a game on 62% true shooting. Your man can't even go 62% on free throws.
It's variance. First of all, Paolo's above 70% on free throw. And Paolo had a 50-burger to start the season. If his demo oblique didn't tear, he would be tearing up the league right now instead of his abs. Okay? So, Franz, he's a great player. I'm not going to argue that. But I think Paolo is better. I think he has a better potential. And when you look at them play, I think Paolo has a higher ceiling.
Paolo slows the offense down too much, man. That's the reason why ever since he's come back, they can't score more than 100 points. He's playing like this the 90s. You can't win with this.
But he's very effective when he plays the 90s. He gets to the rack very effectively. He draws free throws, not by being a foul merchant.
And then he misses them.
Okay, he's missing more than we would like, but he's still getting them. That's the hard part. So, players can learn to shoot free throws better, but not everyone can have the ability to be so dominant at the rim that defenses have to foul them. So that you can't teach that. So he already has the important bits. His midi game, very great. Is that the instinct? He had the ability to go out and hit you 50. He did that. He was talking about it. He was in the zone. That's Kobe type stuff. That's a level of mindset, level of ability
Kobe with Paolo
that he's able to access. Okay, Franz hasn't showed that, so I'm gonna pick Paolo.
That's Brandon Jennings he accessed. Okay, how about you?
What you mean, Brandon Jennings?
How about you name some level of scorers at Paolo Banchero? That's Brandon Jennings. That's Jamal Crawford. That's Lou Williams.
These all bench players.
Yeah,
why you putting Paolo up there with bench players?
Exactly.
Paolo is a 6'10", 270 power forward who can handle the ball like a guard. You comparing him to Brandon Jennings?
He can't handle the ball.
Yes, he
can. Can't handle the ball.
Yes, he can.
No, he can't.
Watch that 50-burger back. Watch what he did.
No, he just wasn't pressured that game. He can't handle the ball.
Yes, he can.
I don't like his dribbling at all. He looks super awkward.
No.
And yeah, I'm just not a fan of his dribbling at all.
He's no PG, but he's stronger and taller than PG. So what did that tell me? Okay, you can be a little worse at dribbling. You're physically just better.
He's not there, man. He's not there.
I mean, I guess only time will tell. I think that'll bring this segment to a close. I want to go on another 3-minute break, and then we'll be previewing tonight's games. See you then.
Yes, sir.